Let's talk about why I quit being an aesthetics instructor. So, I started teaching last year in January of when did I stop teaching? I started teaching January of 2023 and I stopped in like March or April, I can't remember, but of 2023. So, yeah, I only lasted a couple of months and here's why. So, I was first approached by the owner of the school that I graduated from. And we chit chatted. And after that conversation, I was offered a position as the aesthetics instructor full time at the location that I was in. So I would be the daytime teacher, and then there was a nighttime teacher. Chose the day shift because, again, I have kids and I also have my business. So there was realistically no way I would run my business during the day and then go there at night. I would never have time for my family. So I tried to figure out a way I was going to work my business hours into also being an instructor. And because this position was full time, there were no other ways around it. It made it really difficult. So that ended up wearing on me in more ways than one. One, I felt like I didn't have enough time for my clients that I dedicated my time to for the last 3.5 years. So I was fully available to my clients then, and now my availability was very, very slim. So I felt bad about that. I just knew that the reason why I took this job is because I wanted to see the teaching side. I wanted to get more information and more experience with the teaching side because I have some goals for that still currently going on for the future. And not necessarily in aesthetics. It will be lash based. But so I went in there with intention and I knew this wasn't going to be a forever thing. However, I thought it was going to last much longer than a couple of months. So yeah, so that was one thing that was wearing on me. Also, when I first got there, I was just under the impression that I'd get there, I'd have proper training, I'd probably meet the other teachers right away or at least sometime soon and, have some sort of orientation. There was none of that. There was no orientation. I was literally taken into the office. My credentials were set up in the iPad that I was using, and I was not instructed on how to go about teaching my class. I was just given the materials and I was told to basically figure it out. I was put into that classroom that very same day, introduced to my students on my own, and everybody was just looking around. Little did I know, I had been, I want to say, the third teacher that they had. So their faith in me was already very slim, which is sad because I completely get that coming from being an aesthetic student. I had two teachers and a lot of drama surrounding it. And I think whoever has attended any type of beauty school, you know how it goes, right? So fine, get in there. I'm a pretty savvy, person, and I learned pretty quickly. So I took the iPad home with me. I also took my binder home, which laid out what the lesson plan looked like, and I came up with a schedule myself after asking the students how their old teacher went about doing things. So I try to merge the two so that it wasn't too different from what they were used to learning, but also I wanted to include something. I wanted to do them justice. So I wanted to give them an even better experience. Not saying that the last instructor was good or bad. I think she taught well, and I think she did the best she could with what she had. And I had no clue what I was getting myself into. So yeah, so I ended up taking that home. I streamlined it, came back, and I felt like I had a good game plan, which got interrupted quite a few times, not by my students, but by the owner of the aesthetic school. I talk to my students a lot and I ask them, like, obviously we're going to go along with the lesson plan because you have to complete each of these things in order to become a licensed esthetician. And I would like you to walk out of here feeling like you got a pretty good knowledge of what the basics are, because that's what aesthetic school is for. It's for the basics. You really don't get into too much detail, even though I did in certain areas. But I wanted to know where each of them was headed in their aesthetics career, because just because you're an esthetician doesn't mean that you want to focus on facials, right? There's so many different things you can do. So once I got that down packed, I decided to bear more of a focus on certain things that I felt like the majority of the class was more interested in. And I wanted some of the students who were afraid of certain services, like Brazilians, to get some more experience. Oh, and that's another thing, you guys. We were not supposed to teach Brazilian waxing. Meanwhile, estheticians wax. We perform full body waxing services, right? Now, once you're outside of school, you can decide what you will and won't do. But while you're in school, you need to be able to touch all of it and say, I can do it if I needed to. So a lot of my students were afraid of waxing. And by the end of my time there, they were excited about Brazilian waxing, because I created a fun environment. I let it not be so taboo that you are looking at another woman's private area. Like, we literally all have the same thing and we would like to keep it groomed or well maintained. And sometimes you can't provide that for yourself. Most of the times you can't. So you see a professional, and we are the professionals. I taught my students about business management. I taught my students, we actually even had a vision board class, because I wanted them to see where they would like their career to go and make goals for it while they're at school. So I had set days for hands-on learning, and I had set days for my actual lesson plan. Obviously, the best part about being in aesthetic school is the hands-on experience. And so the majority of the week was hands-on, and it was probably 1 or 2 days where we were in our books. So once the owner got wind that these girls were working hands-on and they were working hard, I felt like there was a certain level of, how dare she come in here and feel like she can shake things up or change things up. This is not how we do it. So, of course, we had a conversation. Oh, well, I would like you to focus on this, and I need them to, actually, she ended up coming up with a packet. So I already had a checklist, right? So each student had a checklist of what they've completed during the time that I was there. And as we're working down the timeline, they might have, like, say, for example, waxing, right? I need to see how you do brow waxing at least 3 to 4 times, right? And you're going to practice a whole lot more than that. But I need to physically see it before I'm okay with allowing you to take your final and being graded on it, because I want you to be comfortable with that. So she came in and gave me a packet to streamline that. I had no problem with the packet, but the students were already used to being graded a certain way. So now we had to switch everything over, and it was just a learning adjustment. But we did that. We did it. We made the adjustment and we were fine. What I also noticed is that the materials that I needed were very slim, right? So I had access to the closet in order to re-up on any materials that we were running low on. The girls were mainly focusing on hands-on facials and chemical peels. So with that, we would work on each other. And then we would also take outside people. Now, we needed to charge for outside people if we were not using our kits. We needed to charge a discounted price for outside people. Totally understandable, because you are using the school's product. However, I found it quite unfair that they wanted us to also charge if we were using the products in our kit. Meanwhile, our students were not getting any we're not being compensated on that at all. So I didn't think that that was fair. So I took it upon myself to allow my girls, whether you see it right or wrong, to allow my girls to bring in a person. And if they use their kit, no charge. But if they use the school's materials, then we would charge them. But it started getting to the point where materials were running low, right? I had to come out of pocket plenty of times to buy wax sticks. I would tell her what we needed. And it wasn't really a ton. It was really mainly just like our commonly used items. It might be wax sticks. It might be a special gel cleanser by Dermalogica, or the microfoliant. Well, the microfoliant didn't go as much because that product can actually last a pretty long time. But let's say toner, right? Because you're using toner multiple times within one facial. There was always an issue when I let the owner know, hey, this is the product we're low on and this is what we need going forward. There was always an issue. In fact, to the point where, like I said, I would have to go out and buy my own wax sticks. And when I brought it to her attention, I brought her the receipt and the wax sticks that I just purchased because I wanted to be reimbursed because I got tired of spending my own money. What she told me was each student is allotted 10 sticks per body part that they wax. So 10 brow sticks, 10 leg wax sticks, 10 underarm sticks, and that would be it quarterly. Any waxer knows. For one leg, you could go through 10 sticks. So if you're only performing that service one time, how do you expect me to grade the student on that service? And they've only performed it once. It didn't make any sense to me. So that started to be daunting. The facility was not clean. It was not clean. And I am big on working in a professional environment, in a clean environment. And my students should feel the same way. Because outside of this, when you get into the field, you need to keep a professional space and a clean space. That is absolutely important in the services that we provide. So not only were the bathrooms disgusting, I would say the entire time that I was there, I saw a cleaner come in one time to sweep and mop the floors. There was no cleaner for the bathrooms. So that was on the teachers. And I didn't get hired to do bathroom cleaning. Now we're going to pick up after ourselves as women, but I didn't get hired. And I'm not getting paid to clean the bathroom. We also had no barbicide container. No container and no barbicide. I had to pull teeth in order to figure out where the barbicide was because I wanted to properly teach my students how to disinfect the tools that they're using. They were not used to that. And not only that, I went in to ask the owner for disinfectant soap. She asks me, well, what do you need soap for if you got the barbicide? So I had to sit and explain to a woman who has been in the industry as a hairdresser why it is important to take an antibacterial soap, scrub your tools, rinse them off prior to putting them in barbicide. Yeah. So these are reasons why I'm like, yeah, I don't see myself here. Like I thought I was going to be able to give it at least a full year. And I just I wasn't seeing it no more. But then I started to get so attached to my students, I felt guilty for wanting to leave. So I would say, because we had like rolling enrollment, which I hate. If I ever own a school, I'm not doing that. I want to be able to bring my students in, have them all on the same page throughout the course, and graduate at the same time and do a proper graduation, and then we can enroll the next set of students. Now, there was a constant revolving door of new students in and out, in and out, in and out. So whenever they would come in, I would have to basically start anew on that lesson plan, and we would eventually circle back to where they're. So basically, the student will come in and they're going to start off wherever we left off. Wherever we were at currently, the student has to start there, which can be very confusing for the student and also for the teacher. So eventually I had to keep track of who needed to circle back on that lesson plan to do, say, chapters 1 through 5, because we were already on 6. So, so yeah, so that there was that. I wanted to be able to be there for the students and see them graduate. So like once one would get good and they're almost set to graduate, then the next one is like, please don't leave, please don't leave. This is like the most we've learned in aesthetic school. So like, please just see my graduation day out. And that would keep happening over and over and over again. And eventually I had to say, you know what? I'm going to have I'm going to have to give myself a date. Otherwise I'd be here forever. Literally. And my students respected that. They completely understood it. And I think they appreciated the relationship and the environment that I created. And I appreciated my relationship with them. Even to this day, I have some of the students text me and they'll ask me certain questions because now they're out in the field and, more questions are going to come along, which is why I say, your experience, your physical experience is going to teach you way more. But I wanted them to be able to say, you know what, I feel confident in providing the basics. I drilled that into my students. So I ended up giving my notice, and I wish I could like have filmed her reaction, because it was just like, oh, okay, well, whatever, because she's so used to the high turnover rate. Oh, and I forgot to mention how terrible her attitude was. So not only was it an unclean environment, unsafe if you ask me, because we were not properly, well, at first it was, the tools were not properly being disinfected and taken care of. So you provide an unsterile environment. I'll say that, not unsafe. But also it was a hostile work environment. The students did not like her attitude, and we don't have to like each other, but we do have to respect each other. But the students ran into quite a few issues with her. I would say around this time was when I was getting better at my assertiveness. So I didn't run into as many issues because I learned how to deal with her type of attitude. But you really shouldn't have to work like that.